Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning in to the LLT Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Saturday, June 20th, 2020. I'm at Downtown Saloon located at 10 South New River Drive in the heart of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I thank them for putting up with me for all these years. Right now, I'm still out of work, but not complaining. Got other things up my sleeve, including doing this, because I love it. Yep, so everyone's be talking about what's going on right now. Horrific events that happened in Tulsa in 1921. Was it Greenwood? It's called Greenwood District. The place got burnt to the ground, and 300 black Americans were murdered. And they're supposed to be doing a show on that, which would be cool. It's good to know about the dark side of history as well. When it comes to tyranny, because remember, it's all on multiple avenues. Even what occurred at Rosewood, Florida, from January of New Year's to like the 4th or the 5th in 1923. And I know they made a movie about that. But it's interesting that some of the characters, like when Ving Rhames played Mr. Man, he's considered a fictional character, but the event did occur. I remember hearing about that in the 90s. So, but now what you're seeing right now, what's going on, seeing videos, what's going on with the CHOP, now I call it CHOP, occupied area, so try to get people's attention. Not really a big, there's even reports that they're even breaking into people's homes and all that too. So, I treat all tyranny the same. Doesn't matter what they look like, who they represent. All in the same categories. So, that's why when it comes to the junta gangs, or juntas, or factions, I don't really give two craps about any of them. I'm a man that supports liberty, which equals freedom plus morality. Nothing more, nothing less. And of course, you got the big pathetic news stations here just going the whole systemic racism, and the NFL is involved, the NBA, they're all talking about it now. Well, social engineering at its finest. A lot more history what they're trying to teach you. So, I'm going to be talking about the CHAZ, the CHOP areas, and it'll be pretty lengthy, I would say. Well, I'll just see what mood I'm in. But kick back, relax. I'm going to talk about this one here. It came out yesterday from the organicpepper.com. Why changing CHAZ to CHOP is actually a very big deal. By Toby Cowan. I just wanted to share with you a couple of thoughts that have been on my mind lately and see how it resonates with you out there. Yes, you hear some blunders in the background, don't worry about it. It's been very interesting for me in tracking the rioting that's predominantly going on in the U.S. is obviously happening in other countries as well in support of the Black Lives Matter movement and other organizations emerging around their concerns of systemic racism in the U.S. One thing for those we from the U.S., I don't know if you're aware of how widespread the support for that movement and this message actually is. Even here in Sweden, we've seen protests occurring in different areas, as well as clashing with the police under these slogans and banners. Protests have taken over several blocks in Seattle. In the U.S. on June 8th, a group of protesters took over a 6-block area in the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Seattle, Washington. The Black Lives Matter protests escalated and the police were driven out of the precinct. The group set up blockades barring law enforcement from entering the area and set up camp under the acronym CHAZ. There's photos about this. Of course, they're going to be talking about people who got killed by police, but they will not add Duncan Lemp. Why? Because you're the white guy. So, color police brutality is always used for one particular group. See, this is why Black Lives Matter endorses exceptionalism. So, I will continue on here. Of course, there's plenty of photos on that. The deception of the area vary from its being a dangerous war zone to utopian street fair. Politico says Fox is completely misleading readers and viewers, and that Black Lives Matter organizers are running it, although other groups are also involved. But it's Fox that has been all over the story of the so-called Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, or CHAZ, which is Black Lives Matter organizers on Saturday renamed the Capitol Hill Organized Protest, or CHOP. 4+ blocks of street and sidewalk in Seattle's traditional gay and bohemian nightlife district, surrounding a brought-up police precinct headquarters that the mayor ordered vacated last Monday to dampen a week and a half of escalating confrontations between police and protesters. From there were fluid protests spearheaded by BLM, but involving a wide spectrum of activists and ordinary citizens, coalesced with surprising rapidity into something like provisional government. They have a list of demands. You could read it for yourselves. Some of it, they have some good motives, but a lot of it is acidine. I say that in good faith. First thing that has my attention is the name change. One thing that really struck my mind happened just a few days ago. The Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, known as CHAZ, changed its name on the Capitol Hill Occupy protest. So it's now CHOP. And it's very easy to dismiss as something very small and insignificant. I see a lot of people, when they're writing, still calling it CHAZ. And even the extent of some mocking the name change. But see, they can't decide what they are called, type of commentary. Why is it important to me? Why does it get my attention? A couple of things really. One is about seeing if people are on script, so people are supporting that cause specifically. How quickly do they change the vocabulary? How quickly do they adopt new terminology? How on a broad are they with the message? The important, for tribal identity reasons, tribal identity is a very important factor in the strength of the movement going forward. Second reason is important that we're losing some ground under the title of CHAZ. These occupiers were losing some PR ground. They are getting mocked basically because people were saying, well, you're not autonomous, you declare yourself an independent state. Why you're saying you're not part of America? Autonomous should mean self-sufficient, and you're not clearing that. You're clearly not. You're constantly asking for help. You're constantly asking for handouts. You're constantly asking for donations. You're constantly asking for support, so you're not autonomous. And they're right. So switching to CHOP, or as another Occupy protest, basically mutes out that public relations problem because they are no longer claim autonomy. Now that's very slick, very savvy, that's very smart actually. And that goes to the deeper part of the problem. It's very easy to look at this just a scraggly, ragtag bunch of people just sort of wandering around with this utopian vision. But this small thing really shows a much deeper commitment. Leadership, structure, and inability in order has come down from somewhere and is very quickly spread throughout the key people, and then down to the foot soldiers. This is what we will now be called, and this is why. Now we can look at this kind of PR swing, which in of itself will be quite worrisome, that they could be so on message. But in addition to this, we should note how quickly the change was implemented, communicated, and adopted. But then what's really captured me is the name, Capitol Hill Occupy Protest. Do you remember Occupy Wall Street? The Occupy movement gained strength for the back of the financial crisis in the last decade, and notably from 2009. Swell. You may remember the political slogan was, "We are the 99%. It peaked in the 2011 Occupy Wall Street movement, so the Occupy movement is much, much, much bigger enabler and tribal identity. In fact, there were Occupy movement protests through 2010 onwards in 31 different countries, and most of those were major Western countries. So, this is now basically allowing, tempting, and doubting those people who identify with the Occupy movement to join and rally around this cause. There may have been a small sort of core key groups, perhaps Antifa types in the beginning getting the boots on the ground, actually perform the occupation. Now they can broaden out and become more widespread. I think we're going to see a very sharp consolidation of the power base of this movement, and you're going to see massive increase in the ranks. This is notable for me in two different ways. One is timing, as of publication is June 19th. So we're just 2 weeks short of July 4th, or America's Independence Day, which is obviously a massive iconic date, and not only in the U.S. It's interesting again that a lot of different countries have a sort of adapted their own July 4th variation. Now it's not exactly a worldwide holiday, but certainly a day of note. In 2 weeks, a lot can happen. We've seen this often this year. It's enough time for the major additional plans to be put in place. So this 4th of July could be very eventful. Then there's a second point that's gotten my attention. Think back of 2009 to 2011. This was the peak of the Occupy movement. We're now in 2020. We're 9 years on. So those young, idyllic people that were in the main rank and file of that movement are 10 years older now. Those were quite high-profile students from good universities were getting behind this. What positions are they in nowadays? They're going to be sitting at mid or high-level management in major corporations. They're going to have a whole other sphere of influence, or they might be on the city council. Seattle City Council member Kshama Sawant, I hope I pronounced the name right, was part of the original Occupy Wall Street protest, is also a part of this one. While the protest does not have loose leadership, there are few formal structures. Sawant compares to the space of the 500 tents during the Occupy Wall Street movement in Seattle in October 2011, of which he was part. Back then, Occupy protesters were able to drive police from their space before police returned and cleared out the area where the protest took place. Already, says someone, CHOP has lasted, which they are able to achieve with that Occupy action, which has only lasted 3 days. But she said that she expects police to clear the area sometime in the near future. I don't think we can in any way assume that the police will come back and specifically attack this space. She said, I think we should expect that could happen at any moment, because that's exactly what happened in Occupy. No longer is it about wearing a funny t-shirt and waving a flag on the street and feeling the reward of being part of the crowd anymore. These people have progressed into places that they have a major corporate clout. And this is leading, and it leads to funding. In the last week, there's something that has been notable in a way that I can't say I've seen before with any of the previous campaigns. And now, and this is how many major companies are openly pledging their support, either specifically for Black Lives Matter or for affiliate organizations. I'm not getting into the rights and wrongs of tackling racism. That's not what this post is about. That this is about identifying and really highlighting to you how keeping an eye on the big circle is working. These kinds of movements should get your attention. Now, we're looking at major corporate identification, either through genuine backing of the cause, societal pressure, or the perception of societal pressure. I imagine that people in boardrooms are saying, if we don't get on board with this campaign, we really risk running a loss here and hurting on the bottom line or affecting our sales base, whichever the case may be. Yes, it's a business thing. Virtual signaling now begins to transform into a more tangible corporate action. The key thing I'm seeing in the emails that I receive is donations. Big companies are saying, we support this cause and we're actively putting money into it. And significant sums like $50,000 a week, $100,000 a month, a one-time donation, $250,000. So not only are we seeing an increase in the number of participants, we're seeing a massive increase in funding. And I do believe there was already significant funding for these organizations anyway. This is a pile onto a situation that clearly has concise and controlling leadership behind it. We're trending toward a perfect storm. I read a huge amount of news on a daily basis, just kind of track everything from China to America and everything in between, locally, upscale, and downscale. When something really gets my attention, it's leaping out of the massive information maelstrom. What I'm trying to highlight here is more of a thought process. We need to consume the news, not to be consumed by it. So beware of news fatigue, friends. What I always say, observe responsibly. Well, allowing yourself to absorb a wide stream of information from abroad and varying sources gives you a chance every now and then to see how certain key things fit together and gives the possibility of better trend assessment and therefore a prediction. I'm not going to say this is a perfect storm territory yet, but it's definitely trending in that direction. It's something that I'm keeping my eye on and on more and more. I just wanted to share with you a little bit of what is going on through my thoughts in the last 2 or 3 days. What I love on this particular issue is for you to please comment below if you're seeing the same things. Are you getting those emails from companies pledging support? Are you hearing from work colleagues or friends or family that this is a movement they're increasingly getting behind and they feel that they need to do something? Where is everybody else with this? And this isn't just an American question. Again, go right back to the beginning. These movements are occurring in different countries at various levels of tenacity, and we're definitely seeing those spread. So wherever you're based, please do share your observation, if you care to, in the comments below. Well, Toby's correct in a lot of those areas. I do see this as a one world order platform. Now you got all these multinational corporations that are donating money to the cause. Can we say the road to technocracy? Damn straight. Tyranny comes from all multiple avenues. And all these folks that claim to be anti-capitalist, explain this to me. And, these big multinational corporations aren't really open free market friendly. They spit on the ideology of Adam Smith. But always say, you always got to look at how history repeats itself. They did the same thing that happened in Germany when the Nazis took over. IBM and Ford Motor Company and Bush, they were funding it. Prescott Bush, they were funding these things. The Union Bank was funding them. Very similar. Nothing new at all. Always study the past because it's today's greatest teacher. What we're seeing now has been done multiple times in the past. Well, we're going to continue on here. Someone made a commentary from the Epoch Time about, I read this last night, and she has a real good point here. This is by Diane Diamond, and this one's entitled Crimes Against Common Sense, and here's her viewpoint on this. What the hell is going on in this country? When do we, the majority, stop speaking up for ourselves? Crime against common sense seems to happen every week, yet most of us stay silent. Or is that the media only highlights those who scream the loudest, leaving the impression that what they demand must be implemented? Of course, everybody's playbook, propaganda, self-explanatory. The most vocal citizens today are the self-righteous members of the so-called woke pack. Those who see themselves as arbiters of social and racial justice. And if you don't believe as they do, you are the enemy. Right out of Pol Pot's playbook, or Vladimir Lenin, or George W. Bush. You're with us or you're with the terrorists. Very similar. The ideas of critical thinkers seem to go virtually unremarked upon. So I ask here, when did it become acceptable for politicians to order police to abandon their station and allow demonstrators, some armed with guns, to occupy square blocks of an American city? Seattle's mayor has explained away her occupying force as a Summer of Love protest group. Does no one worry that this takeover of downtown Seattle might end badly or spread to other cities? every citizen's constitutional right to assemble and peacefully protest. But who in their right mind thought joining those recent massive street demonstrations in the midst of life-threatening pandemic was a wise idea? And now that we see a rise of COVID-19 cases in several states, many of the woke bizarrely point the finger of the blame at opposition party politicians for not halting the spread of the disease. Do we lack common sense to see coronavirus spikes is our own doing? The cancel culture that exists today pushes aside all clear thinkers who dare express an opinion or ask a clarifying question. All white people are racist, the rich are criminals, all police are bad, they say. Even television cops are to be condemned. TV producers of live PD and cops crumble to demands and cancel their programs. Main police dog character on the kids' cartoon Paw Patrol was targeted for elimination. Think of the negative effect all of this anti-cop fervor will have on both our children and future police recruiting. But if you disagree with these new revolutionaries who are determined to make the rest of us bend to their beliefs, you're bitterly attacked and ostracized. Author J.K. Rowling of Harry Potter fame nearly fell victim to the cancel culture squad recently when she chided a headline that read, "People who menstruate." She accurately pointed out that this is women who menstruate. Well, that brought howls of condemnation from the LGBTQ community and reminders that some people who have transitioned from female to male still have a monthly reminder to assign of their birth sex. Since when does a tiny minority of a population get to decide on how the rest of us think or express ourselves? Isn't their hyperbolic response to contrary views exactly like the bullying they do so frequently rail against? And, okay, I will ask, why isn't it okay to stand up for all humanity and to state that obviously that all lives matter? That statement does not denigrate black lives. Rather, it places black lives on the same high platform as all others. I'm very weary of the wordplay and twisted meanings given to innocent statements. And finally, let us consider the recent move to destroy our history as if it too could or should be erased. Protesters have demanded countless statues of Civil War leaders, including the Emancipation President Abraham Lincoln, be removed. Likewise, for monuments depicting conquistadors who colonized the American West, did some of those historical figures act in ways we considered apparent today? Absolutely, but pretending history didn't happen is to bury our heads. If you follow their line of thinking, we should stop teaching students about World Wars I and II because atrocities took place. The horrors of Hitler's pogrom against Jews, against Jews should never be mentioned. The Vietnam War, the Civil Rights struggle in the 60s, and the Kent State all had decidedly ugly aspects. Do we ignore those events because memory might make someone uncomfortable? Students of this country's history knows the shortcoming of our system. Nothing is perfect, and adjustments are underway. But considering radical ideas like disbanding law enforcement, criminal takeovers of inner cities, and controlling others' conversations is just plain foolish. Can't argue with that, folks. This is why you have the right to speak your mind. If you offend people, who the hell cares? To all those trophy kids, Orwellian snowflakes, Orwellian saps out there, free speech is more important than your feelings, and I can give two craps what you think of me. If I hurt your feelings on my rhetoric, too bad. Because I'm not a wuss. Okay? That's right. I am not a wuss. And I did my activism too. I know the damn game. I'm not afraid to counter it. The great thing, awesome thing about it, I didn't have to be angry. I just throw right back at them with finesse. And they look like deer staring at headlights. Like zombies. Those are the areas we gotta focus on, folks. These little twits, they're everywhere. This is just an example. They're gonna get shut down. It's gonna blow back in their faces, I guarantee you that. I don't know when, I don't know how. But a lot of people are a bit ticked off. If you get offended on the show, don't listen. Don't waste your time. Don't complain to me. Just turn it off. I don't watch. I hear all these stupid TV shows. Like, I never really care for these cop shows anyway. With all due respect, that's my decision. Don't watch it. What's going to be next? America's Most Wanted? Think about it. It's called a ripple effect. They want us to be dumb, stagnant, happy, and have chains where I was wearing shackles and chains and cowbells around our necks. They believe if we serve them, being walking antimatter is cool. But you know what? Negative. That's all I gotta say. Blowback's coming soon. Here's one of the reasons. Like Fredrick Douglas something about Fredrick Douglas and gun control, which these particular groups like. They want all of us disarmed. They want us all enslaved. So they're double speaking. And here's from creators.com by Star Parker, and it came out the 28th of a couple years ago. Fredrick Douglas and gun control. President Trump has signed into law bipartisan legislation establishing Fredrick Douglas Bicentennial Commission to celebrate Douglas's life and work. I've been honored to be appointed, along with Dr. Elveda King and his niece, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and others to his commission. Born into slavery 200 years ago, Douglas taught himself to read and write and escape freedom and become anti-slavery and human rights activist, newspaper publisher, and advisor to the president. I consider Douglas' life and his struggle as I watch this latest round of public debate about the right of American citizens to bear arms. I watch this amazement with the ease with so many are ready to compromise the core freedoms that define us as Americans, for which so many may have struggled and died. In May of 1865, 1 month after the end of the Civil War, Douglas spoke to the American Slavery Society, convened at a New York City's Church of the Puritans. The topic of discussion was whether the society should continue its work in the light of a formal abolition of slavery. By the end of that year, the 13th Amendment prohibiting slavery in the United States would be ratified. Douglas' address entitled, "In What New Skin Will the Old Snake Come Forth?" He spoke prophetically, questioning the value of the anti-slavery amendment if black Americans would still not be protected by rights guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution, while legislators in the South can take from him, the black man, the right to keep and bear arms as they can. The work of abolitionists is not finished. Fast forward 145 years, another black man, Otis McDowell, sued the city of Chicago because of his ordinance prohibiting him from owning a handgun to protect himself and his property from vandalism and break-ins were regularly taking place in his neighborhood. McDowell's lawsuit made to the Supreme Court, which ruled in 2010 that states and localities cannot offend the Second Amendment protection for individuals to keep and bear arms. Just to let you folks know, it even coincides with the Illinois Constitution. They have called a right to keep and bear arms. I believe it's under their Bill of Rights. You go look that up, folks. I'm not making it's Article 1. I'm not making this stuff up. Decisions stem from the 14th Amendment the second post-Civil War amendments to the Constitution, whereas the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment guaranteed protection of constitutional rights in the state. It's very controversial, but I did a show on that. I'll continue on here. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens within the citizens of the United States, nor shall any deprive law of any person's life or liberty or property without due process. Well, we go further in that with 9th and 10th Amendments, okay? So this amendment addressed the concerns of Fredrick Douglas that although slavery may have been abolished, states still have great latitude to deny citizens constitutional rights. I always like to use natural rights. People that know me understand. The Supreme Court decision of McDonald versus Chicago argued that the 14th Amendment due process clause to protect the citizens' Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms in the states. Well, like I said, all you got to do is look at the Illinois Constitution. Article 1, self-explanatory. Associate Justice Clarence Thomas, while supporting the majority decision, where a separate concurrent opinion argued that the 14th Amendment protection stems from the Privileges and Immunities Clause. Privileges and immunities, argued Thomas, are our most fundamental rights as citizens, and is what the right of American citizens to keep and bear arms is about. Thomas, in his opinion, documents the bloody history of murder and lynching against blacks and white civil rights activists. Without federal enforcement of the inalienable right to keep and bear arms, these militias and mobs were tragically successful against the very people the 14th Amendment had just made citizens. Freedom is not free, nor is easy. The alternative to freedom is tyranny. Those who think it's a good idea to compromise our freedom rather than deal with its great challenges err tragically. Fredrick Douglas would surely be an NRA advocate today and would be fighting to preserve our right to protect ourselves. And that's a good statement on that. So, and of course, there's a lot of history too. But way back when, they wouldn't let people own firearms, regardless if you're skin color free or not, or even mulattoes. And I posted this video so many times called "No Guns for Negroes," which was created by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. It's like 23 minutes long. Very good content. Yeah, gun control is racist. And those people, these movements I talked about aforementioned, are for victim disarmament. Yes, they are racist towards humanity. And Fredrick Douglas would attest to that. So you gotta look at all the bigger picture here, folks. This is why we gotta exercise it. And we gotta tell our state and local governments to stick it. And they gotta tell us how to think. Even our state, doesn't matter. Federal, state, local. Tell them to stick it. So the truth of the matter is, your rights are naturally born. You can never take them away, alter, or abolish them. But governments can. So, if folks still want to do is occupy these areas, harass others, you're going to get burnt really bad. There's not a damn thing you're going to do about it. Alright, well that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, if you said something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence to Decorum. Furthermore, I'll leave the articles, these footnotes on my Spreaker page. If you want to do a donation, you can hit me at paypal.me/BookYourLuck3. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.